Welcome to Socially Unfiltered,
That's the sleaziest tactic I have ever heard.
I cannot believe they would say that to you.
an open discussion all about social media, entrepreneurship, pop culture, and everything in between.
We're just some DIY girlies.
It costs $0 to support your friends.
You'll go on deep dives and doom scrolls with your hosts, Lex and V, to uncover the stories behind the headlines and look at everything through an unfiltered lens.
I want to relive the 2000s.
Not the trauma dumping on a Monday.
So grab a drink and get ready for a lot of yapping. Don't worry, there's no quiz at the end.
Strategy is such a buzzword.
English isn't my first language, so that's my excuse.
This is the Socially Unfiltered podcast.
I'm nervous.
I'm a little nervous. Not really, though. I feel like a lot of this, I mean, it can definitely come off offensive to some people, but it's also just like, so there's no right or wrong. So
Yeah, exactly.
nothing to be nervous about, I guess.
I guess.
I'm still nervous, but nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Hope you ate all the good food and took a nap. I'm trying to think how to get into this. Oh, we have a bit of a controversial topic for today.
A little bit.
Buckle up and prepare
Get
yourself.
ready for the discussion that I feel like we've touched on this a teeny tiny bit, but we're going to really dive into it today, obviously in a very respectful and a very open-minded way. We're going to talk about religion versus spirituality, and I think a little bit about what we both dive into, what we both believe, what we have questions about.
Mhm.
Because I know even I feel like your thoughts, not you specifically, but just like in general, thoughts and stuff on this change
Oh, yeah.
often and feelings change, and it's just fun to dive into. We can start just with the basic definitions of them. And religion, I guess, is more organized practices, more like community based, I would say. And
Mhm.
spirituality, I think, is more personal and individual growth and things that you do within yourself. There's obviously a lot of overlap with the two of them. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, I mean, so much of the world is religious. I think it's like 80% or something. And everyone has, there's so many different religions out there and different gods and goddesses and so many different things that people practice and believe in and have like, I don't want to say rituals, but just like the practices, I guess, that they
Mhm.
do on a daily or like weekly basis, depending on what they believe in and their religion. But I also think it's like religion also comes with how you're raised as well. Like if
Mhm.
you grew up religious versus if you grew up spiritual, I think it just depends on like your parents' parents, and down the line, like how that works. Because I know so many people that, weren't religious growing up and then maybe they started going to church because of like certain situations in their life, or like they have never been religious, but then they started like being a little bit more spiritual and intuitive. So I feel
Mhm.
like it in that way, like you just find where you sit and like what you believe in. But I feel like it all starts from a really young age. And like for me, I started in the church like from a very, very young age with my grandmother. My grandmother's very religious, and like my whole family was. My mom wasn't as much, like she wasn't around enough to go to church with us. Like I went with my grandma every single weekend, and that's all I
Mhm.
knew. Like I really didn't understand spirituality. Like I didn't get it because I wasn't taught that, and like no one around me was
Mhm.
spiritual, so I didn't know anything about it. Like, I guess I knew a little about intuition, but I didn't know about the spirituality side of it. So I grew up like super religious, and
Mhm.
I feel like this year, or even not just this year, like the past couple years, I haven't really felt like that like in tune with religion anymore. And then I feel like this year now, I feel like I'm very spiritual and like intuitive versus religious.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Like I feel like it can change and like your
Mhm.
beliefs change and just where you are in life can also change depending on
Mhm.
like what's going on and the things you lean into, I think
Mhm.
start to show more.
Mhm. I mean, I also was raised kind of the same way. So religion was not so Christianity specifically, actually like very to me, the things that were shown to me about religion at a very young age were like Mormon adjacent, which I feel like I joke about is why I'm so like weirdly obsessed with sister wives shows and like
Yeah.
the secret lives of Mormon like the religion of Mormonism is so fascinating to me because I think a lot of not my immediate family, like religion was never in my immediate home, like neither of my parents, none of my siblings, but my grandparents and specifically my grandma, the one that just passed away, who, I mean, to say she like semi raised me, I think is a little bit dramatic. 'Cause it's not like my parents were never not in the picture, but like I was with her, I mean, 7 days a week
Same, yeah.
from morning to night before I went to school. And then I was
Mhm.
with her from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. after school when I did start going to school.
Mhm.
And she was religious, but and definitely took me into church, like, as a small child, like, I remember going on, like, Christmas Eve and, like,
Mhm.
Easter, like, it was very much just, like, the flashy, showy holidays, and then as I got a little bit older, she got way more, like, active in the Christian church,
Mhm.
and that was always kind of like a big divide between us because I by the time I hit like 10 or 11, like I had no interest in it. Like it just gave me a feeling that I didn't like and I feel like we can talk about what that feeling was I think a little bit later, but I was probably in like 6th or 7th grade. I willingly leaned back into the Christian church because I became really good friends with somebody who was a very religious family, and I don't know if I don't remember, like, if at the time I was like, "Oh my god, I'm, like, genuinely curious about this religion now that I'm, like, old enough to understand it a little bit more than just, like, you go to church because it's the right thing to do."
Mhm.
Um, or if I just was, like, really good friends with this girl and was like, "Well, they go to church, like, I'll go with them." I don't
Mhm.
remember what it was, but, like, I willingly chose to go to, like, Bible studies with them and would go to, like, Sunday services and stuff, and then after that, I became very, like, there is no such thing as God. There is no such thing as religion. Like, religion is stupid. Religion is dumb. Like, I all through high school remember just being, like, agnostic, basically.
Mhm.
And then I think in like early 20s, I was like, okay, I'm not saying that those things don't exist, but it's just not what I choose to believe in. And then like mid 20s, I very much was like, okay, I really do not vibe with organized religion. I'm way more spiritual.
Mhm.
Do you see like the light above me right now? It's
Yeah.
very weird. I
She's
yeah, and
mean.
that's yeah, and that's basically just not to go off on a tangent, but, like, my
Yeah.
background with it, like, I feel like I've gone through waves, I've gone through, like, I don't accept this at all, God isn't real, and now I'm to a point where I'm like, God is real for you, and this is real for me, and I'm not saying that those things don't
Yeah.
exist, it's just more of a not what I choose to structure my life around, basically.
Yeah. I agree. And I also think like with religion, it's like you feel a part of a bigger shared group where like you
Mhm.
come together and like whatever you're going through in life, it's like, you're all there for the same reason and like believing one thing. And I think that brings people closer together for sure. And I think that's
Mhm.
why people do go to church every single week and they need that community and like need the support. And I love that.
Mhm.
And it's great. But I agree. I feel like I was also in a phase where like I grew up in the church and like only believed in that for so long. And like I was taught there's only a heaven and a hell and that's it. And, like you
Mhm.
have to be a good person or you're gonna go to hell and you're gonna burn and like all of these
Mhm.
things. And then I grew up and like kind of restructuring that. And obviously, I'm not saying this is exactly how it is in every church or like that's what they say. Like that was just my grandma
Right.
probably trying to be like, be a good
Well,
person.
no, I had the same like, I joked about it and until my grandmother passed away. My grandmother lived her entire life never seeing a single tattoo on my body
Mm-hmm.
because I had been told my entire childhood,
Yeah.
tattoos are a sin, you're gonna go to hell if you get a tattoo, like, tattoos are for juveniles, tattoos are for
Yeah.
criminals, you're never gonna get a good job, like and again, like, it's sad that she passed away, like, never seeing something that, like, I love and am so proud of, but, like, when that's drilled into your head as a child, like, it's hard to, one, not rebel and be like, "Well, then fuck it, I'm going to get every
Mm-hmm.
tattoo on my body that I possibly can,"
Yeah.
which was only half of why I did what I did, but I it's just hard to, like, unlearn those things and, like,
Yeah.
like I was taught, like, if your shorts are too short, if your shoulders are out, if, you're like basically women ask for it, like to just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like give it the gist of like what was drilled into my head as a child. And even now, like as an
Yeah.
adult, I'm like weird. I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to wear too short of a crop top. Like, oh my God, like is
Yeah.
this skirt too short? Like it's literally drilled into my head that like
Yeah.
you choice certain choices you make are going to make you be like condemned to heaven, condemned to hell, like
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
doing things that I don't really think justify that. And it's scary for a kid.
Yeah.
Like it's scary to think you're gonna go be in a fucking underground cave that's
Yeah.
eternally on fire. Like
Literally, I'm like, I was terrified as a child. Like, anytime I, like,
mhm.
lied or did anything bad, I was, like,
Same.
literally, like, praying and, like, next to my bed, like, "I'm so sorry, God, I'm so sorry." Like, I was
Same.
scarred, and I just think, obviously, a lot has probably changed since we were kids, and
For
maybe not,
sure.
I don't know. Like, again, we don't have every single scenario, every single church does everything differently, and it's
Mhm.
like we could go somewhere else and I'm sure it would have been great, but we didn't
Mhm.
have that experience, and this is literally solely for our experiences again,
Yeah.
like, we just wanna make that known, but yeah, I also just think just thinking about the fact that religion usually always has, like, leaders, like, people are
Mhm.
leading the service and the mass or, like, the worship, whatever, and I think you're all, like, leading for one thing and very, like, textbooky versus
Mhm.
spirituality, I think, is very much about, like, being guided by your own intuition and, like, working on your own inner problems and, like,
Mhm.
challenges and just trying to find out who you are through your own intuition, and again, this is my opinion, like, maybe you
Mhm.
feel that way about religion as well, but I feel like that's just the difference for me in it. Of,
Mhm.
like, discovering yourself and you're trusting your own intuition, not putting all of your trust in something else, I guess, if
Mhm.
that makes sense, like, I think a lot of the
Yeah.
time we credit external things, and this could be the same thing for spirituality, if you're, like,
Mhm.
crediting, spirit guides or angels or goddesses or a god, like, you only credit that for whatever you succeed in life, or, like,
Mhm.
if you're going through something, you're like, "Well, it's fine because, God
Mhm.
or my spirit guide has me," and they do. I fully, like, agree with that. I just think we need to also give ourselves credit for the things that we're doing and, like, you work hard and
Mhm.
make shit happen at the end of the day. Like, yes, we can, put our trust in these external factors, but I think it's also about, like, for me, I think spirituality has really been, like, leaning into, like, I can do this myself too, and, like, I am
Mhm.
capable, and I have worked hard for it, and, like, giving myself that credit instead, because like, I used to always just be like, "Thank you, God. Thank you to God." Like, it's only because of that, and I just
Mhm.
don't think that's true anymore. Like, I really just think that we are capable of doing anything we set our mind to. It's just all your mindset and,
Mhm.
like, how badly you want to accomplish something. So I don't know,
Mhm.
I just feel like lately, this year, I haven't been in that mindset, and, like, I'm more in, like, the trusting my own intuition, like, my gut instincts, and
Mhm.
maybe that's the spirituality side of it, maybe that's just, like, I've worked on my confidence and, like, trust myself now where I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not just thanking God or thanking an outside thing.
Yeah.
I'm thanking myself because I
Mhm.
worked to get here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something like I have so much that I wanna say back to this, and I don't I don't know where to start. Basically, yes, I agree with you 100% about everything, and another thing with the community aspect of it is, to me, and I'm not saying that this is everybody, I feel like I'm just kind of pointing out a bunch of different things that make me, like, uneasy about organized religion as a whole and physically going to a church to worship. To me, if that is where you put, like, yes, your community that supports you, but if that is where you put, I guess, like, you lean on that for everything in your life, like, I've known people who are like, "I'm just gonna pray harder and I'll feel better." And it's like, well, you also would feel better maybe if you, like, go to a therapist.
Mhm.
You like, something that, like, sticks out in my head is, like, I saw a TikTok recently and it was like a husband and a wife like joking around and like laughing, whatever. And there was text over it. Like, why I even got this video on my For You page is so weird. Probably so I could talk about it today. But it was like, the devil only tries to disturb happy homes or something. And then like the caption was about how like the husband basically was like micro cheating, like sending like one too many texts to a girlfriend, like liking a picture he shouldn't have liked, but never actually like physically cheating. And then I went to her page and it was like this 7-part story. And I'm like, well, I gotta hear this. So I started listening to it and she's like, like the devil comes for what he sees as the happiest, and that's why he tried to step foot in my home and like convince my husband it was okay to step outside of his marriage, like even in these minor ways. And I'm like, no, your husband didn't respect you enough and like might like cheated on you basically. Like,
Right.
why are we like,
Blaming
oh,
outside.
yeah, blaming the outside influence, like, oh, the devil did that. And same thing the other way too. Like, well, first, before I move on from that, I think it's a lot of refusing to acknowledge that you yourself might be the problem. And then it's again also on that community side where it's like, if you had this like thing happen in your marriage again, if there was some form of like micro cheating going on, which where does the line draw? Like it's cheating. It You can only rely on that community and going to your church service once a week so much to be like, we're going to pray to God and he's going to fix this. Because again, not to, I feel like I've talked about morbid death literally all morning. I During everything with my sister's husband, like I literally prayed to a God that I don't even 100% believe in. I know there were hundreds of other people praying for a different outcome. Like,
Mhm.
how can you sit there and be like, prayer alone can fix something and just believing in God will get you through this? And yes, like that may be where a lot of people found strength to deal with what happened. But I also think it's a little too much sometimes relying on that strength. And it's again, why did prayer not work in that situation? It's just,
Right.
there's so many like weird
Like
reliancy.
questions. Yeah.
Yes. And it's weird too because so Ethan studied religion in college and has a lot of knowledge about a lot of different religions. And he has very like tangibly and successfully explained to me why does childhood cancer exist? Why does half of the world go hungry every night? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
just because there's a God doesn't mean everything is going to be perfect because he gave us free will, is basically what that boils down to. Is the devil is its own entity and can have free will over people, and God also gave humans free will to make their own choices, which is why again, like I don't think like repenting your sins is just enough to not make you a not good I don't know. There's
'Cause you
just
have
so
free will. Again, with
yes, because
that, if we're
you have
taking
free
that,
will.
right? If
Yes.
if we're taking
Yes.
that,
Mhm.
this person has the free will to turn a blind eye to whatever devil or negative impacts that are gonna be
Mhm.
on their marriage. But
Mhm.
it's like, at what point is it just you married a
Your choice.
disrespectful asshole who
Mhm.
is that was his choice. Like,
Mhm.
there's no puppeteer, fucking
No.
Remy the Rat like tip tapping on his screen for him, okay? Like at what point do we take responsibility for our own
Mhm.
actions or reap the benefits of our actions? Like,
Yeah.
if you get a raise or something and you've been working so freaking hard all year
Mhm.
and you're like, it's all because of God. It's like, no,
Mhm.
you worked your ass off to get here.
Mhm.
But I guess, like, to the other side of it, you can say, "Well, he got me through because I was going to church, the community," which
Yes.
I get it. I totally understand, and I get both
Yes.
sides. This is, like, the whole
Same.
point of this conversation. I
We
just
go in circles. Like, this
Yes.
is not us being like,
No.
religion is wrong, spirituality is right, or spirituality is wrong, religion's right. Because there is a lot of
Mhm.
crossover with both of them. And any point that I'm making about religion, I could very easily make about spirituality too, because
Right.
why would I sit here and be like, I manifested my dream life? Like, no, because then people are going to think I sat there fucking rubbing my crystals and closing my eyes and
Mhm.
saying my daily affirmations. And that's how I got where I am. No, I got where I am from early fucking mornings, late nights, a lot of work, like a lot of
Right.
trial and error. Like, it's, it's so hard because
Yeah.
I don't think you should be putting like all of your success and all of your failures onto this one thing, because again, even in Christianity specifically, they believe that God gave you free will and
Yeah.
you are utilizing your free will every day.
But to the manifestation part of it, think about manifesting, right? They always say saying things out loud and like you convince your brain of the things that you're constantly saying. Think about prayer. That's
Mhm.
manifesting. Like
Yeah.
you are repeating certain things that you're like wanting to welcome into your life and you're
Mhm.
saying these things over and over. Your brain is registering what you're saying and they're going to look
Mhm.
out for opportunities and things to get you to that point. So
Mhm.
this is why in my head I'm like, you need to give yourself the credit because yes, you
Yeah.
are praying and yes, you are manifesting in whatever side you say it is. And this is not to
Mhm.
knock prayer at all or to be like,
At
well,
all.
you're manifesting, but it's just like this, similarity of it, of like you
Mhm.
are repeating something. And there's been so much research done that the more you repeat something, the more your
Mhm.
brain registers it and like makes you believe it. So you can
Mhm.
call that delusion, prayer, what manifestation, whatever. But I think it is like your brain registers that and looks out for more opportunities. So if you're like, I really want to work with like this type of dream client, the more you say it, the more your brain's going to find opportunities to
Right.
bring you that.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, because don't you kind of feel like, or at least for me, I don't even want to ask, like, how do you agree with this? Like, I want us to very much have like our own stated opinions on this stuff because it is weird, but like I feel like the biggest difference with that is I go into manifestation practices and rituals knowing that the purpose of me doing that is to help train my brain to look for more opportunities.
Mhm.
If I want this camera, whatever, I am not just going to be like, I'm going to get that camera. I'm going to get that camera. I'm going to be like, constantly like assuring myself that I'm going to get this camera, but then in my everyday life, I'm
You're
looking for
working
side
towards
gigs. I'm looking
it.
for more
Mhm.
work. I'm looking for an extra client. Like I'm
Yeah.
actively doing those things. And to me, when I hear people talk about prayer, I hear it as you're sending up a Hail Mary and being
Yeah.
like, I hope this comes true eventually. Like it, to me, it's like the lack of effort, and I'm not saying that that's
Mhm.
all the time. And I also very much want to say, like, I know there's very much like a stereotype of Christianity, and I know a lot of our friends are Christian, and I wouldn't even consider them the stereotypical Christian. Ethan, up until a few years ago, like when we met, he's like, I'm a Christian. And the more that we had conversations about it, he's like, I really don't think I relate like with the Christian
Yeah.
religion. Like I just enjoy the idea of Jesus. And
Mhm.
that's what he identifies as
Yeah.
now. He doesn't look at my stuff and be like, that's fucking insane. That's fucking witchcraft. Like I don't look at his stuff being like, you're talking to a made up guy in the sky. Like you just like believe whatever
Yeah.
you it is that you need to believe. But for me, the difference between manifestation, especially you have to be doing manifestation correctly, because I do think there are a lot of people too who are like, oh, I just have to do these affirmations every day and everything
Yeah,
will come
no.
through. And you have to understand it's you training your brain to look for opportunities to make those things come true. And I
Yeah.
feel some people might consider prayer the same thing. I just know for every time I've ever heard like, oh, like sending out a prayer for you, I'm like, okay, so you're just like thinking that you want something to happen. You're not actually
Mhm.
like looking for a way to make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, all very much like just personal thoughts and feelings and things that have happened like to me. Cause again, like there was so much prayer with the Travis situation. Like, how did that not fix it? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And that's not like a genuine question that I'm asking because I don't believe that. But I just mean like if prayer is so strong and if God is so amazing and powerful, like why did so many people asking for help in that situation not warrant help
Mhm.
to be given? Like what did my family do to not deserve that help? You know what I mean? Like I just feel
Yeah.
like it very much comes across as like he helps sometimes and he helps not other times because then you're accrediting all of your success to him and it's like, well,
Right.
where was he with my success? Where was he with
Right.
your
Yeah.
failures? Like just yeah, it's weird.
Exactly.
It's just a weird it's a weird topic, which is why we're talking about it.
Yeah, and I fully agree with like I just listened to a podcast and it was with a neuroscientist and she like studies the brain and all of these different things and she does her own studies and like groups of people and like she was talking about manifestation cuz the interviewer was asking her like, "Well, if I just say these things like you're beautiful, love you so much in the mirror every day." And she's like, "Yeah, but your brain like knows that you're bullshitting in a sense of
Mhm,
like you have to be doing things that are actively going to have you believing in that and like working
mhm,
towards it. So she's like, you can sit there and say, I want $1 million. Oh, and it's just going to come to me. Like it's because I'm saying it and putting it out there, it's just going to come to me. She's like, no, you're
mhm,
avidly seeking opportunities, like you said, to make those things happen. You work towards it every single day and like your brain gets rewired. And she
mhm,
like talked a lot about like just brain activity and how we manifest as humans. Like the more we say things out loud, the more we do things, like that's what we're attracting. And it wasn't about like religion or spirituality or anything. It's just
mhm.
more like the manifesting part of it in your brain and how that works. So I completely agree. Like that's
Repetition.
not what and I feel that prayer in a sense is kind of like you're just praying and then like just crossing your fingers and hoping it happens because you're like, I'm just gonna leave it all to God, and it's like you
Mhm,
have to do the work as well. You can't
mhm,
just hope that something magically happens and appears for you, like, life isn't easy like that, and then to your
mhm,
second point, like, yeah, that's what's really hard for me too to grasp is, like, why when so many people are praying and, like, there's all this prayer and you want it to happen so badly, why does that not happen? And I think like a lot of people that are very religious would be like, well, the devil's working at like really hard and he's not going to let God succeed in
mhm.
every single situation. But I also think to that point, like
How do you
when
choose?
how do you choose? Yeah, how do you I don't know. How do you know what was successful because of like God versus because of you versus the devil
Mhm,
interacting versus I don't know. There's
mhm,
just a lot of questions and obviously we will never know until we pass and I just yeah, I think I have those questions as well. And
mhm.
something else that really bothers me is like say somebody is really sick or like something happens and people are praying at the end of the day like if they're going through all these rounds of medicine and like surgery and all these things, like they only thank God
Oh, this is
for it.
literally my biggest pet peeve.
I
Like,
know. And that's why I wanted to bring it
actually.
up because I know we
Oh,
both get
thank
so
you.
bothered
Yes.
by this because I'm
God,
like,
I hate this.
these people like just performed what a 45-hour surgery or like
Mhm,
they've been working with you for years and like the medicine and the science and like the doctors and how long they go to school for and like
mhm.
literally give up like decades of their life to be able to save people and just for it to be taken
Thank
away
God.
from them just to
Yeah.
thank God. And I don't know, like it's just can we
But
thank
then I feel like
science
there's people that
and
would be yeah, but I feel like there's people
doctors?
who would be like, "Well, I'm thanking God that that person went to medical school. I'm thanking God that he invented medical school." Like, I get that you could, like, keep the ball rolling, like,
Yeah.
in that way, but, like, physically standing in that room, yes, you could say, like, if you're religious, that you have a little bit of Christ or God or whoever, Jesus, anybody, like, within you. So, like, physically in that room, that was the doctor performing a medical procedure. Like, again, I get that, like, God or Jesus could be within him, and then technically it's God or Jesus making that happen, but, like, physically with their hands inside of your body was that doctor, and you're gonna wake up from surgery and thank God. Like, that's actually, I hate when people don't point out that modern medicine had a
Mhm.
significant part in things, and like, it actually irritates me so bad. I don't know why,
Mhm.
because I have, like, no personal, like, beef with that. I just lit for some reason, it really bothers me. I might be because of, like, Ethan working in medical. I'm like, it
Yeah.
would bother me, like, if one of his patients, like, came and was like, "I'm fully healed," and they were like, "Thank
Yeah.
God so much." Like, I would be annoyed that they weren't like, "Thank you, Mr. Tutton." Like, I would
Yeah,
be
exactly.
so annoyed
Yeah,
at that. So, I don't
agreed.
know, it just really, yeah, it really bothers me. But wait, I wanna go back to, should we talk, oh, we do have it on here. You
Hmm.
said what happens after we die is when we kind of find a lot of the answers to this, and I was like, should we talk about that? Like, what we think
Yeah.
happens when that happens? But then I saw it on here, so you were a step ahead of me.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I remember telling you this, like, I used to be so fucking scared of dying, like, I used to
Mhm.
be just like, anytime I, like, thought about it, like, I genuinely would, like my heart started racing, like, I would literally, like, break out into a sweat, and, like, if I think about it too much, like, I would literally have the most anxiety I've ever had in my life, like, it
Mhm.
scared the hell out of me because I was like, I don't know what happens, and, like, I've only ever been told there's a heaven and hell, and, like, what is that like, and, like, who goes where, and what's decided, like, is there a fucking roster? Like, I don't and, like, where
Am
do
I
I
making
don't
the
know, like
team, or, like, are there
yes,
tryouts?
and I used to be just, like, so terrified of it and not
Mhm.
knowing or, like, just being gone forever, and, like, I guess I always just, like, thought that you're just gone forever or it's, like, a heaven and hell, but then I was also, like, not really leaning towards that anymore, so I'm like, "Oh, we're just gone forever," and, like, I don't
Mhm.
know, I had this, like, weight on my chest, I felt like, until I feel I started exploring more of, like, the spirituality side of it, and I was like, "Okay, like, this makes so much more sense now," and, like, I found this, psychic medium, Jesse King, and he's, like, a huge, like, psychic, on TikTok, I think his videos were, and he just kinda, like, explained a lot of, like, the spirituality side of it and, like, where our spirits go and like there's playing fields and like there's like 9 planes and we're on like this plane and there's 5 above and he's like there's 5 below and
Mhm.
there's like certain planes that you can go to and there's like I don't know, I can't obviously remember everything he said, but I just remember hearing that and I was like, wow, like I just feel so much better about that now and it makes
You're like, "I
sense.
just needed one person to tell me I wasn't gonna be, like, banished to hell
Yeah,
for the rest of eternity, and now I feel way better."
literally, yes. I was like so terrified and now I'm just like yeah, our spirit just goes on and it lives and
Mhm.
vibes and we can do whatever as spirits, and I
Mhm.
feel so much better about that now.
Yeah.
And, like, I
I
know
remember
now
the
when we
day
lose
we
people, like, we never lose them, like,
no,
they are
ever.
with us, and especially, like, going to a psychic and having those experiences and being able to talk to, like, ancestors, I'm like,
Mhm.
it just solidifies it even more that, like, we never just go away and we don't
Mhm.
disappear. We're just a physical space right now for our spirit.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's
Holy Spirit, activate.
yeah. No, literally. We're conduits, I think is, like, the
I mean, they
technical
literally
word in, like,
call it the
the
Holy Spirit, and you're not gonna
yeah.
believe in spirits?
Right. Well, and that also will lead us into the question of,
Yes,
like,
our
do you
next
think
one,
that you can believe in both? Because there is a lot of, like, if you believe in this, it's hard to believe in that. But it's funny, I remember the day that we talked about, like, what we think happens after you die, and, like, we realized, like, we both are very scared of death, but, like, in very different ways.
Mhm.
Like, you were scared of what happens after. I have literally never been, like, more at peace with something than I think what happens to us after we die. Like, I know that my physical body will go, like, wherever it goes, and then my spirit body will just go flutter around the entire universe. I could go here, I could go there, I could be a tree, I could be a dog. Like literally, to
Mhm.
me, that's what happens. What I'm scared of though is the process. Like I got super down a rabbit hole like 2 years ago about near death experiences and like what people see and what they
Yeah.
feel and what they hear and the way that they all say the same thing. Like
What do
it's
they say?
so a lot of them say that it is like a light at the end of the tunnel basically and like um it depends because a lot of people will talk about it from like a traumatic way. Some people will talk about it from like when you're suffocating, like you just all of a sudden can breathe, like you're not struggling to breathe anymore, like you know, if you feel like you're falling asleep, like you all of a sudden are wide awake, but you're like not in your body, you're like around your body. Like basically everybody just says that like you go from feeling like the struggle of dying to like immediately being at peace. And for some people, they basically like get like sucked back into their body and come back, and other people go like cross over to wherever it is that they're crossing over to. Um, Super interesting though. I like got like super down a rabbit hole on TikTok a
Yeah.
few years ago of like people just like talking about it. And it's just weird. But yeah, I've never been uneasy about what happens afterwards. It's the physical act of dying that I'm like is
Mhm.
my biggest fear in life is like what is it going to feel like when you die? Like I think about like suffocating, like you just can't breathe until you die. Like it's just
Oh,
crazy to me
yeah.
to think about like the physical act of dying and what it
I
feels
mean, now
like,
that
but
you say that,
I
I'm
know, I'm
add it to the
sorry.
list.
I just have not I think that's why I'm so like but I'm okay, like, once that's over, like, I know what happens, I
Yeah.
know where I'm going once it's over, it's like, you gotta just, like, get through that struggle a little bit, but, like, I that part scares me the most of, like, actually getting there,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it was
I'm
funny
nervous about
that we talked about it.
yeah, I'm nervous about some of that too. I just think, like I don't know why, I just always thought about,
Mhm,
like, the after. For some reason, I'm like,
mhm.
just over here pretending like everybody dies in their sleep. Like, no, it's
Right, like,
there could
peacefully
be
and
some, like,
calmly.
really scary situations and thinking
Yeah.
about that and, like, the yeah, I don't like thinking about that, and I just wish for everybody that we live a long life and that
Mhm,
we pass peacefully in our
mhm.
beds, and yeah, unfortunately, obviously, we can't again, like, we can't pray that for anyone, and traumatic
Mhm,
shit happens every single day, and it's like we can't pray
mhm,
to our spirit guides, we can't pray to God for that, like, life is life, and I think that's just the circle of life and
mhm,
how life is supposed to be, like, again, the free will aspect of it, so,
mhm,
yeah, I agree, but, then, like, to the believing in both, like, I don't know, I
mhm,
go back and forth about both because
mhm,
you can also look at it like, I know when we've talked to psychics, they're like, you can call them spirit guides, you can call them angels, you can call them
mhm,
gods and goddesses, like, they can be whatever you want them to be, and then again, you could be like, "Okay, they're servants of God," you know?
mhm,
Like, the spirit guides are all servants of God, and they're his children, and you can, I guess, like, look at it that way, but
mhm,
I don't know, I think when it's, like, religion relying so much on, like, old text and Bible versus, like, spirituality, I think is always changing and
mhm,
just focuses on your own discovery, your own growth. I think it's different in that sense.
mhm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's hard too because I always love, like, when psychics or mediums, anybody say, like, you can call them gods or goddesses, like, because there were a lot of gods and goddesses, like, there were gods
Mhm.
of the sea, there were gods of the earth, there were gods of the sky, there were
Yeah.
goddesses of, like, Aphrodite, like, there literally
Mhm.
were so many that it's like, what if your roots trace back to, like, that was your god? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I get that those gods, like, in a lot of, like, the, like, Greek mythology and a lot of other, like, scriptures about gods and goddesses, like, God is above them, but, like, what if, again, like, you trace back and it's like, well, my roots believed that Zeus was our god. Like,
Yeah.
it's little things like that where it's like, it's hard for me to believe there's just, like, one that rules it all, but going to the both thing. So I also go back and forth on this because I joked earlier about like witchcraft, but like a lot of spiritual practices do give off some sort of like anti-religion, I guess. I don't
Mhm.
want to say like Wiccan or like,
Yeah.
witchy vibes, like it kind of does, and especially communicating with those who have crossed over, like
Yeah.
it's hard because like what's that? Like the Ghost of Christmas Past movie, do you know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about? Where like they all come back and like tell Scrooge about whatever. Like that's seen as an act of religion like phenomenon. But when you go to a psychic who's talking to your grandmother who's crossed over, like that's witchcraft.
Mhm.
So it's hard because I think a lot of it again like crosses over, and there are a lot of, like a Sunday church service, like that's a ritual. Like
Right?
it's literally a ritual with, I mean, not a sacrifice, but like just there's so many crossovers that like I think you can, yes, believe in both, but it's hard because a lot of I think what structured religion teaches is that a lot of the practices in spirituality are like wrong or bad, works of the devil, like witchcraft, whatever.
Mhm.
So I think it's hard. And I think that's where you have to kind of be like religious in the way that you're not following the stereotype of that religion. And I feel I am speaking mainly about Christianity through this whole episode. Like it's mainly
Yeah.
just Christianity. I know that there are other gods and scriptures and
Mhm.
organized religions and whatever, but I think what I have the most experience with is Christianity, going from, you know, not that religious to like really just spiritual. So
Yeah.
I think you can, but I think where it gets like sticky is like if you are this traditional structured Christian, I don't think you're allowed to believe in a lot of the spiritual stuff. But then there's that like weird discussion that opens up like, but that's not what Christianity is supposed to be. They're not supposed to be
Yeah.
judgy. I think you're not necessarily allowed to believe in a lot of the spiritual stuff if you fully dive into Christianity,
Yes. I
which
agree.
I don't think is fair. And I'm not saying that every Christian is like that, but I think it's a little hard sometimes when somebody who is very Christian and very much identifies with every single aspect of that religion. It's hard when they're like, well, I went to a psychic and like talked to
Right.
this person, because you're not technically allowed to believe in that. And like, if you do believe in everything from Christianity, you would think that that was the devil talking, because that's what they say.
Right.
Some scriptures say it is like you're not actually communicating with your crossed over loved one, you're communicating with like a demon that's trying to possess you.
Mhm.
So it's hard. It's really hard because I think a lot of it, like, again, you're just not necessarily allowed to believe in. You might still do it, but like to a traditional Christian, like, pastor,
Yeah.
whoever, you would be wrong in believing that,
Yeah.
which I think makes it hard.
Yeah. That is really hard. And then so the past couple times I've been in a church have been for like baptism or like a funeral, and they like hold it in a church, and most have been Catholic. And
Mm,
I also grew up like Russian Orthodox, which is like Christian. And so going to a Catholic church I think was very different too. I mean, all I've had to compare it to was going like in the Ukraine, which was very different because the kids always like
right.
went upstairs after the first little thing. They went upstairs and like we played and stuff.
Mhm,
Um, so I never had like an adult experience in a church until like the
mhm,
past couple like baptisms I've gone to, or like the funeral services, and I have just felt like really uneasy in all of them. And like,
mhm,
in the Catholic church, they wore like the big white cloaks and they had these like giant crosses, and like they would walk down the aisle and then they would go like, stand at the top with them. And then everybody drank from the same cup, like red wine. And I'm just like, is this not a ritual? Like, I don't know. It felt very culty. And I, sorry
it
if that's
is, it
offensive, but
feels
like,
so
it
culty.
felt very culty to me. And I just felt uneasy being there. And I have never ever gotten that feeling when I'm like, with a psychic, like, especially
Mhm,
the one I just had that was in person. I'm like, I feel very, like, calm and at ease, and like that I'm free to be like myself and not judged. And I don't know, it's just that's the experience that I have had. Obviously, again, this is not every church experience, and like some of my friends are religious and they have very different experiences in churches, but it's just like,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know, those are the experiences I've had. And I also just, I guess, don't understand the part of like baptism if you're not religious or like you don't go to church. I don't know, it's
Mhm.
almost like anyone can just do it, but then don't have like a, what's it called? Like a responsibility to like continue to serve the Lord. If you are like,
Mhm.
I'm baptizing my child in this like space, and then just to say you did it because it's the right thing to do. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't understand that part of it if you're not religious, but you get your child baptized and like make that choice for them. But like, we also have a friend who didn't baptize their child, and they are religious and want that choice to be for the child when they grow up, if they decide to get baptized or not. I was baptized because it was like I was in a very religious like setting, but I don't know, I always thought that was interesting, like when you baptize a child but you don't go to church
Well, I
just to
think
like say you do it and like to
yeah.
have God be with them regardless. I don't know. I
But
guess you
it's
don't
like I
have to go
also
to
know a
church to be
lot of
religious, but
you don't, but I also know a lot of people in my adult life who I'm like, "Oh, why are you going to church on Christmas Eve?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know, my family makes me." I'm like,
mhm,
and what's the point? And like that was where
right.
I started to have like the disagreements with my like grandparents, because I was like, I'm not going to church. Like I'm not. Like there's no point in me going. So I think a lot of it is just like for show, or to like the checklist, or like, this is just another cute event of my kid. Like, but you have no like intention of actually
Mhm.
living your life that way. You don't attend this church, you don't go to this church. Like I personally think it's really weird.
You don't understand it, obviously, as a baby and, like, as
Mhm.
a toddler and what I don't know, yeah, I just have always thought it makes sense as a family, I guess. I mean, like, for me, it that's just what they did because my grandmother was religious, like, my family was religious, and that's just what religious people do is they baptize their kids.
Mhm.
But
Right. I mean, I
yeah,
think they just want to include you in
yeah,
that, you know what I mean? I'm
yeah,
not saying it's a bad thing to do it, I just think, like,
no,
you shouldn't be choosing somebody's religion for them for the rest of their life, but I think
right.
that also comes back to, like, religious people being parents. Like, are you so closed-minded that you won't allow your child to explore anything other than
Mhm,
what you believe in, and that's gonna be a divide in you for the rest of your life? Or are you gonna acknowledge that you, with your own free will, chose to be this religion, and you're gonna allow them to do the same?
mhm. Well, and I also think most of the time it's because you get money for a baptism. Sorry to say it, but why else are you baptizing your kid if you don't go to church and you're not religious? Like,
Mhm.
then you baptize your kid, you just want the money that comes from the people that you invited to go
Right,
there.
you want the cute party. You want
Yeah,
the cute outfit, and you want the party.
yeah, and the money.
Right.
That's yeah, I don't know why else you do it if you're not even a part of the church or I don't know, whatever. To
Mhm.
each their own, I guess. But yeah, I agree. Like I wouldn't have made that choice for myself. Like,
Mhm.
and I mean, even like in middle school, when people go to CCD, it's like they were being forced to go in middle school
Mhm.
to CCD, and nobody ever wanted to go. They were just doing it because they're like, oh, just have to do it. Like my parents signed me up. Like it was just like, I'm like, it's just the thing to
Yep.
do. And I don't know. I'm like, what's the point of sending your kids to those things if they don't believe in that or want to be there? Like, I don't know. I just,
Mhm. I don't hear anything.
you don't?
No.
Wow. Okay.
What is it, the leaves?
A fucking like lawnmower. Yeah. Right there.
Oh,
Right next to
no.
me. Okay,
I
good.
don't hear it
Slay.
literally at all. Okay, well,
Microphone's doing a great
I
job.
know that quiet, reduced noise is really pulling its weight on this episode.
No, for real.
Between
I'm at
my
work.
train and your
It's
lawnmower.
literally so loud. This podcast is brought to you by the Social Media Manager Business Blueprint. Just fucking kidding. But if you want to build a profitable and attainable social media management business without breaking the bank, we've got you. Download our 25-day business blueprint linked in the show notes below and get ready to become the social media manager and business owner that you've always dreamed of. Okay, back to the episode. Oh, yeah. Another thing is past lives. That's what I also don't understand
Ooh,
because
oh, I
for
love
like
this.
reincarnation,
I love
I
this.
don't really understand because like how do we decide who gets to reincarnate and who gets to just be a spirit and like vibe
Mhm,
and like who gets to see their past lives like when we die do we get to see like who we were in past lives if you believe in that but
mhm.
I don't know. As of late, used to believe it was like just Adam and Eve and they were put on the earth and they started everything.
Populating.
Yeah, they started populating and brothers and sisters were hooking up. And if you don't find that weird, I don't know. Weird to me. Incest. Like, I don't understand. Um, so I don't believe in that anymore.
Mhm.
Uh,
I mean, for your past life, like, questions, I wish I had answers for that, like, or I wish I don't even know what I believe in, like, in the
mhm,
answers to those questions. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the person, like, I think you can either choose, or I think it just is kind of assigned to you based on a lot of different things. Like for example, I think if somebody wears a necklace every single day and then they die, like I think a part of their energy is like infused into that necklace. It literally touched their body 24 hours a day for how long?
yeah.
Like I think it just is part of them. But one of the biggest things that like makes it really hard for me to believe that like you just die, your body goes in the ground and then you are like banished to heaven or hell is the fact that energy can never be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred.
Mhm.
When you die, your energy does not just disappear. You might think like what you believe in is that your energy goes to heaven or that your energy goes to hell. For me, I think that your energy continues. It's 11:11. I think your energy continues to, I think, like, even stick around in your home for a little while. I think, like, can I don't, again, I don't know the answers to this, and I don't even know what I believe it to be, but, like, I think you might have the choice to, like, be something or to, like, show up differently. Like, I don't think if you're a spirit, you're just a spirit forever. I think you can then choose to, like, go be in the tree. Like, I think you can choose to, like, be in the wind. I think you can choose to be the flowers that somebody just bought from the grocery store. Like, I think it has a lot to do with, like, who's around you before they pass or, like, who would want their energy to be in things
Yeah.
around you, or again, like, you just I don't know, there are reports of ghosts just fucking with people for no reason. So it's like, are you just like being mischievous in the afterlife? Like, oh, I'm done with my mom for today. Like, I'll go like fuck with this person in the store. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of unanswered. And I think that also is where like it trips me out if I think about this stuff too much, because then I start thinking about like parallel timelines and I start thinking about like, you know, I think there are times where it's like you were supposed to be in this car accident and something was looking out for you and you jumped over a timeline and like you should have died that day, but you didn't. And now you're on to this timeline, but there's still like a part of you that's living in that world. Like it's so, I just get like really, I think about it
Like
too much.
deja
And then
vu and like
yes, I
that
think
freaks
that
me
really
out.
has, yes, like something to it. Like, have you experienced this before? Or like, um, and I don't want to say that I didn't believe in this until something happened very close to me, but like, for example, with Travis, I don't really think I've ever talked about a lot of this. Like, he always said he was going to die of something from the throat, and then he died of something from the throat. I have always been very scared that I'm going to be stabbed. Like, that's just how I'm going to die. And I'm convinced that a little bit of, like, what you might have known to happen in like, maybe I was stabbed to death in a past life, and that's why I'm so scared of it now. Like, it might not
Yeah.
indicate that that's what's going to happen, but, like, why am I so scared of, like, certain things when I have no previous, like, traumas with them? You know what I mean? Like, I think I think it's you kind of picking up on things, or like when you go into like a store and you see a painting and you're like, "Oh my god, I'm obsessed with this painting," and you've never seen the person in the painting, or like
Yeah.
you have never liked that style before, but you're like obsessed with this painting. Like, is that some of your past life preferences like
Yeah.
leaking over into your current day self? Like, I think there's so much with it. And like I think I even said it on here a few weeks ago. I was like, all of a sudden I want everything in my life to like be an antique, and like I just feel like I like everything very different now. Like, again, not to sound super morbid, but like I feel like when my grandmother passed, like I I don't want to say like inherited some of who she was, but I think a lot of it too is me just like looking at things differently now and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, like my grandma would have loved that." But I feel like a little part of it is like, did a part of like my grandmother's preferences then become like a little tiny part of me, because all of a sudden I have a fucking green and yellow hummingbird lamp in my kitchen, and I've never
Mhm.
owned anything green, yellow, or hummingbird in my life. Like, it's little things that I'm like, it very much could be me just like wanting to see her like in certain things, but I also think it has a lot to do with like
Yeah.
maybe like 3 grandparents before this one like also really liked all of that stuff, and it just
Yeah.
like keeps coming down. Like, again, I can like spiral when I think
Yeah.
about this
There's
stuff.
so much. Like, there's just so much that
I will never
we'll
understand.
never understand, or like, I don't know. It's so crazy to think about. And but this it's good, I think, to just be open. Like,
Yeah.
it's good to like have that openness, and whatever does happen, like we can accept it and not be
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like I just wonder how people feel when they do die and only believe in one certain thing, and like what if
Mhm.
it's a whole other thing, and I wonder if it's like their eyes are finally open to
Like
like,
culture shock. You're like, "Whoa,
yeah,
this isn't where I thought I was going."
yeah. And that's, I think that's just the coolest part though, is like no one knows until you know.
Well, and that's the thing, like,
It's like
who
a
knows?
secret
Like,
club, like you can't get in until it's
right.
time.
But, like, also, like, what you believe in and what I like, that could be what happens. Like, it could just
Yeah,
be, like, such a, like, unique experience that, like, what you believe in while you're here in your physical body, like, really does determine some stuff that happens to you after, like, maybe your dream afterlife is to be in heaven, so maybe you get to go to heaven, you know? Maybe my
yeah,
dream afterlife is continuing to, like, be around the people that I love the most, so, like, maybe I get to choose to be around people more. Like, it's, you never know, and, like, it really could be different, like, just depending on what you believe in, and who knows?
yeah.
We'll never know, which is, like, sad and scary to think about.
I have seen something like, because so many people are like, oh, well, if I just like call out to my angels or to my ancestors, like, does that mean they're like right there with me, like
Mhm.
constantly? And anytime I say something, they hear me. And I just saw they were like, no, like they're not in multiple places at once. You can only be in one
Mhm.
place at a time. Um,
Mhm.
so no, they're not like just always around you. So if you don't get a response or whatever, like if you're
Mhm.
spiritual, um, they're not always around you.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. Like they're free to do whatever they want. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I guess you gotta learn to
Free
suck.
will, baby, follows you to the afterlife.
Yeah, literally.
But who knows? Who
I know.
knows, fam? We could be wrong. You and I could be on one-way tickets to burn in hell for the rest of our lives. We have no idea.
As
We'll literally never know,
long as we're together.
as long as we're together. Yeah, you're definitely on my list of people I wanna haunt if I die first, so
1,000%.
keep your intuition walls down for me, please and thanks.
I will. The only other thing I feel like I would mention about the church is just the amount of pedophile pastors in them. And it's just crazy to think how many people they have deceived. I mean, if you watch the documentary, it was right here in Boston. Um, and it was sickening, and it makes me just like, that's the one safe place that these kids and adults, I mean, but
Mhm.
kids especially, should feel safe going. And the fact that they were taken advantage of and traumatized, and trigger warning essayed, like, and
Mhm.
preyed on by these pastors and big high up people in the church. I just think it's like, why would God allow that in his home?
Mhm.
The
Free
devil, I
will.
get it. Yeah, because it's the
Yeah.
devil working, but it's like, I don't
But it's
know.
also like it's hard because I think a lot of people who have urges and like tendencies in that way seek out jobs and things like that where they will have access to a lot of victims basically. And I think this might be kind of controversial for me to say, but I think in a structured religious setting there are a lot of children that are easily manipulated, and then
Mhm.
also a lot of adults that are easily manipulated, and that's how cults are started. That's how
Yeah.
churches go bad. Like it's because these people in power are very manipulative and they're very persuasive, and they like being in positions where everybody listens to them. And that's where again I get like the weird feeling about church is like I feel like going back to the beginning, like the weird feelings that I would get, it just makes me feel like I'm sitting in a room where like if the person up on stage told me to jump 5 times, everybody around me would get up and jump 5 times for literally no reason. And like,
Yeah.
I just don't like, again, there are people that seek out certain positions because they know they're going to have access to a lot of people that could easily be manipulated, could easily be persuaded, especially in a religious setting because so many people turn to it as like the strength that they need. You know, if you're going to your pastor and you're like, I am having like weird feelings about wanting to cheat on my wife, and he's like, okay, well the only solution is to go cheat on your wife and get it out of your system. Like
Mhm.
who's going to say no, I can't listen to my pastor? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but objectively that's really dumb advice. And not saying that that has happened or does happen. I think there's obviously a lot of good people out there too, but I
Yeah.
think a lot of it is people again with those tendencies know to seek out certain positions, and they know how to hide it until they get to where they want to be,
Mhm.
and they like being in the church position because there's a lot of children that are easy to persuade into doing things,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of adults that again that's where it like crosses into like the cult category where it's
Yeah.
like a cult starts because of a lot of people with a shared feeling about something, and then it just turns into them putting too much trust into the leader, and the leader goes haywire.
Yeah.
And just very parallel to structured religion sometimes, and spirituality too. There's definitely people that are like, oh my god, we're gonna go suck on these crystals in the middle of the Moab desert and we're all gonna come out millionaires. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there are people that like take advantage of people in every situation,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I
but
mean,
I
there's
think
so many
religion is the
frauds out
most.
there too, like, there's fraud
Mhm.
psychic readers, there's fraud,
Yeah.
like, spirituality people that do, like, retreats and all these different
Mhm.
things, like, it's everywhere, and I think
Yeah.
it's, like, again, to each their own, and whatever you believe in, like, this is not out of any disrespect, and
No.
this is just a good topic for us to debrief, and I think just, like, keep an open mind and
Mhm.
welcome all of these different opinions and things, and hopefully, like, listening to this, you also have listened with an open mind and are like, your opinion can change, or like your
Mhm.
beliefs and your religions and spirituality can change. Like, you don't need to stay in one place, and whatever's right for you in the moment in time you're in. I just feel like keep an open mind.
We can all exist in a world where we're doing and believing in different things.
Yeah, exactly. It's what makes us all unique.
Thanks for hanging and talking about religion and spirituality with us. Let's shut this down before we get canceled.
I
Just
know.
kidding.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts. We will see you back here next week.
Love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. case you haven't heard from us enough today, come hang on Instagram at Socially Unfiltered Pod.
Join our group chat to stay updated in between episodes by texting group to 833-459-3349.
Download the Social Media Manager Business Blueprint to start building your business today.
And last but not least, grab your official Socially Unfiltered merch from our Bonfire store.
You can find everything linked in the episode description below or at sociallyunfilteredpod.com.
We'll meet you back here next week, same day, same time. Bye.
Bye.